Would you think about going through hell and high water just to have a family? Well, for the couples you're about to meet, they wanted to start a family until this businesswoman in Texas decided not to just start a family, not to just start a surrogate family, but take their own money. Take their own money. Here's Lisa Guerrero.
All these couples say their hopes of becoming parents were stolen by this businesswoman.
Hi, I'm Dominique Side and serial entrepreneur.
They say they all deposited tens of thousands of dollars into a company she ran that families thought was going to pave the way for them to hire surrogates who would give birth to their babies. Instead, they say Dominique Side used that cash for global travel, luxury expenses, and designer clothes she showed off at big events.
Give me your name one more time. Dominique Side.
She also allegedly used the money to set up her own music studio. How much money are you out?
For $50,000.
$54,000.
$10,600.
It's just absolutely devastating.
We were so excited to have a baby.
After a long struggle with infertility, Chris and Caitlin Kettman say they sold their cars and drained their savings, depositing $57,000 to Dominique Side's Texas-based company, Surrogacy Escrow Account Management. Attorney Marianne Robach represents 30 other couples now suing Dominique Side over their missing funds.
These families have lost a lot more than just money. They've lost their hope for their future families, and that is just reprehensible.
We caught up with Dominique Side in New Orleans when she was out for an evening stroll. Are you a surrogate scam artist?
No.
But she walked off into the night.
What happened to make you turn so evil?
Dominique Side denies all the allegations and has not been criminally charged. The FBI tells us they are investigating.
But the FBI will probably not find anything depending on what they look at from a case perspective. So in the meantime, you need to start doing your homework looking into this. So if this ever happens to you, contact me, do your research. Do some homework, do some research if that ever happens to you. We're going to be doing a 30-minute show. I hate doing these at like 3 in the morning. Alright. Here's something that you might want to do. Duck hunting. Take a look.
Saturday, November 2nd marks the start of duck hunting season in the Coastal Bend. I'm Erin Hawley, your Padre Island neighborhood news reporter, and I talked to Texas game wardens and local duck hunters to find out if the recent drought and high temperatures will affect the success of hunters this duck hunting season.
Your day as a duck hunter will start anywhere from like 2:30 to 3 in the morning, and if you're real lucky and you got a nice, easy, comfy spot, sometimes you can get out there as late as 4 or 5.
But will duck hunters this season be lucky ducks?
Ideal for duck hunting is typically your overcast days, your colder days. That will bring those ducks from a higher altitude into a lower altitude.
Captain Game Warden Ben Baker says the recent dry and warm weather conditions shouldn't negatively impact this year's duck hunting season too much.
The ducks are ultimately going to go south for their migration, so it could change up the timing a little bit on it, but ultimately they'll get here.
And experienced duck hunters like Pate Hamza
Actually, that's mine right there.
are waiting patiently.
Anywhere the backside of Mustang Island all the way down south is pretty world-class hunting, depending on who you ask. but there's a lot of cool species that spend their winter exclusively on the backside of that island.
Captain Ben Baker urges duck hunters to follow all protocols.
Waterfowl is a migratory game bird, and so all those rules and regulations apply as far as, having your hunting license, having your migratory game bird endorsement, having your federal duck stamp, having your HIP certification.
And he reminds them,
Whenever you're waterfowl hunting, you have to have a non-toxic shot, no lead shot. You have to have steel shot whenever you're waterfowl hunting.
experienced duck hunters say it's just a matter of time.
I imagine this heat and this drought is going to keep them up north a little bit longer, but they'll come down here eventually. They always do.
To once again enjoy another successful season. The duck hunting regular season in the Coastal Bend goes through December 1st and resumes on December 14th. On Padre Island, I'm your neighborhood news reporter Erin Holly, Chris 6 News.
Always make sure you have a hunting license when you're hunting. That way, you won't be able to get caught. If you love duck hunting. Still ahead, a story about the rhinos. But first, would you ever be in Boy Scouts if you knew you were gay? This man did, and he came forward saying that he was gay, and he got discharged from the Boy Scouts. Edie Magnus has that story. Stay with us. There's a debate going on all about daylight saving time. The spring forward and fall back. But now there's a new push to good night twice a year for daylight. So how can that happen? Take a look.
This morning, the return of a timeless debate over whether the U.S. should good night its twice-a-year clock changes.
Anyone else not ready for it to be dark when you get out of work?
From TikTok to late night, even celebrities have weighed in.
What I like about it is it allows me to know that spring is really here.
In March, our clocks sprang forward, extending daylight later into the evening. Now on Sunday, the clocks will fall back, allowing for an earlier sunrise and an extra hour of sleep. Something Swifties in Indianapolis will be celebrating after meeting Taylor Swift at midnight for her final concerts in the U.S. this weekend.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
Daylight saving time first clocked in during World War I as an attempt to conserve energy during the warmer months. But since then, times have changed. One new survey shows nearly 2/3 of Americans want to do away with the flip-flopping, and some lawmakers agree. In the last 6 years, 20 states have enacted legislation that would make daylight saving time permanent, arguing it would reduce crime and boost physical activity with brighter evenings. But in order to take effect, Congress first has to pass the Sunshine Protection Act, reintroduced last year. Senator Marco Rubio, who sponsored the bill, writing this week, "It's time to lock the clock and stop enduring the ridiculous and antiquated practice of switching our clocks back and forth."
I still haven't found a clear reason why we do this incredibly stupid ritual here in the United States of sunset at 4 in the afternoon.
Though the country has tried it before in 1974 and reversed course within a year after a series of traffic accidents. Without falling back, cities like Seattle and Detroit wouldn't see the sunrise in January until 9 a.m. And so in the meantime, experts say, here's how to prepare. Avoid caffeine in the afternoon, limit your screen time, and practice calming activities before bed like reading a book or sipping on tea, as the clock confusion ticks on.
Okay, all right, we have some things to talk about. First of all, they always say change your clock at 2 in the morning. Most people obviously just change it before they go to bed, but why 2 specifically?
It's an interesting question because basically when we first started experimenting with daylight saving time in the early 1900s, they based it off of when no trains would leave New York City at 2 a.m. So they thought it would be the least disruptive time. So that is why we'll see the clocks change at 2 a.m. on Sunday, except Savannah, as you well know, Arizona and Hawaii would stay permanently.
And this is why I have like a mental block. I cannot understand it. I don't get it. And my microwave is going to not change. It's going to blink and
yeah,
I
think so.
Thank you. 12 o'clock class.
If you think about it objectively in 2024, the fact that we still do this as a country. Other
We're
countries.
talking about train schedules at 2 a.m. like 100 years ago. We just made that argument. Okay.
Let's go.
Dylan, save us.
Dylan.
It's weird when you have to wake up at 2 a.m. because, like, does your phone change for you? Is it on? You're watching it change. It just makes it all very confusing.
Hey, thanks for watching.
It makes everything confusing. So come that time when the law passes, we would know all about changing those clocks. Now, even then, we would have to worry about not changing clocks to even worry about being dishonored from the Boy Scouts for announcing that you are gay. Now here's a question for you. Would you ever imagine going into Boy Scouts? And as the Boy Scouts leader, how would you feel if you heard one of your cadets tell you, out of the blue tell you, or one of your friends say, or one of your friends heard that person say, "I'm gay," and they were all in shock and saying, what if it was Girl Scouts? Teenage Girl Scouts would say, "I'm pregnant." You're discharged. Well, if it was a Scout's honor for this person you're about to meet, then it would be a Scout's honor for him to come forward and tell his side of the story about why he was discharged from the Boy Scouts. And if it was a Scout's honor, then he would have his Scout's honor from the Scouts. So why would he come forward and saying that he was gay? Even though the rules say that he wasn't allowed to be gay. He had to be straight. Here's E.D. Magnus.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight.
You recited that Boy Scout oath for 12 years. Do you still believe it?
I actually still do believe it.
But the Boy Scouts no longer believe in James Dale. Once a symbol for all of Scouting's promise, he is now at the center of a painful controversy as he fights to rejoin the organization he says nurtured and then betrayed him.
For 12 years, they thought I was great, but when they found out one small piece of who I am, then I wasn't good enough anymore, and that's wrong.
Now 29, James joined the Boy Scouts of America at age 8 and stayed with it all through high school, earning 30 merit badges over the years, neatly sewn on a sash he keeps at home to this day. James eventually reached Scouting's pinnacle, becoming an Eagle Scout at age 17.
You know, it was a labor of love. It was a place that I found acceptance. I found a group of people that said, "Hey, you're a great person, and we're happy to have you here."
And the Scouts were proud to present him as one of their shining stars, asking him to make appearances, even to recruit for them. Eventually, they made him an assistant scoutmaster, qualified to lead a troop of young boys. But it all came apart in 1990 during his second year of college, when James says he realized and chose to reveal publicly that he was gay.
In my second year at Rutgers, I came out of the closet, and as Scouting had sort of taught me, you get involved.
He joined the university's gay and lesbian organization and made a speech about the needs of gay teens. The local paper wrote about it and took his picture. A few weeks later came a letter from the Boy Scouts. James was out. Membership to homosexuals, they wrote, was forbidden.
I never expected that from the Scouts. I never expected that from a group that had sort of made me feel so good about myself and welcomed me for so long.
But they hadn't welcomed you as a homosexual man.
It sort of just didn't come up. It really wasn't. I mean, that was my life at Rutgers, but I still went back to my Scout troop and I was still the same person they always knew.
I mean, had you grown up thinking that the Boy Scouts were accepting of homosexuality?
I guess I'd never put it in the context of Scouting. I thought that some people would be great with it and other people might not be. But I never thought that the Boy Scouts were anti-gay.
And why did you decide to fight?
Because I knew in the bottom of who I am, in my core, that this was wrong, that this went against everything I was ever taught in the Scouts. and I couldn't look the other way.
With the assistance of Lambda, the Gay and Lesbian Legal Defense Fund, James took the Boy Scouts to court. He accused them of violating New Jersey's anti-discrimination law and asked to be reinstated.
Why was it so meaningful to you to essentially fight for membership in a club that was saying it didn't want you?
Because I don't believe that the members of the club don't want me. I don't believe that this is what Scouting represents.
In court after court, the Boy Scouts attorneys have argued it is a private organization and as such has the right to set its own membership standards. They said the Boy Scouts view homosexuality as immoral and that its policy bars gays from being scouts or troop leaders. The Boy Scouts say their opposition to homosexuality is made clear in the Scout law, which calls on boys to be, quote, clean, and in the Scout oath, which requires Scouts to be, quote, morally straight. That was news to James Dale.
You had never been told that morally straight meant sexually straight.
Never. I'm unequivocal on that. Never.
And it wasn't something that was just kind of known, implicit.
No, not at all.
You can't be gay and be a Boy Scout.
Nope. I look back, what it means to be morally straight, to be a person of strong character. Your relationships with others should be honest and open. You should respect and defend the rights of all people, to stand up for the rights of all people. That's in their handbook. It's not in the handbook I had when I grew up, and now it's a different handbook. That's the same language.
The Boy Scouts wouldn't talk to Dateline on camera about James Dale, but a spokesman with its public relations firm said the handbook may not spell it out, but the policy against homosexuality is as old as the Scouts. He said troop leaders should be role models who reflect Scouting's highest values, not avowed homosexuals.
The concern has been expressed over and over again that as a gay troop leader, you could be in a unique position to influence young Scouts about homosexuality, to promote homosexuality to young Scouts.
I grew up in a society that's filled with all the people that are my role models identified as being straight. And I still managed to sort of turn out gay. Then how did that happen? I don't think that sexuality is something that you sort of influence, you know. I don't think it's sort of like a political belief.
But sometimes these boys are going to look to you for guidance. What if a young boy were to come to you and want to talk about sex? Are you the appropriate person to talk about it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I'm a fine person to sort of talk to a kid about sexuality, but I think an important point here is that that's not primarily what Scouting is about.
The fear that some parents have expressed, and they aren't necessarily proud to admit it, is that a homosexual troop leader could be involved sexually with their boys.
I'm concerned about people that take advantage of children, just like that mother is. But I think that the sad statistics show that the majority of people that take advantage of children happen to be self-identifying as heterosexual. That's where the real problem lies, not in a person who the Boy Scouts found out is gay and drummed him out.
That's how New Jersey's highest court saw it. Earlier this month, it ruled unanimously that the Boy Scouts had violated James Dale's civil rights, that they'd expelled him for reasons, quote, based on little more than prejudice, and should let him back in. James' attorney, Evan Wolfson.
Gay people are fit to work with kids. We are role models, we are teachers, we are lawyers, we are doctors, and we're able to be in there participating in every aspect of society.
But it isn't over. The Scouts immediately vowed to appeal and take the fight all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. James Dale is busy now with a full-time job in marketing and sales for a New York-based magazine. And he's waiting for the final outcome of his case. He says he'd like to return to the Scouts as an adult volunteer to share the lessons he learned in Scouting with a new generation of boys.
Personally, James, I would trust him with my grandson. Because I don't think I know James would never harm a boy.
Among James' most ardent supporters, Norman Powell. He was James' favorite Scoutmaster and the person James turned to when the Scouts kicked him out.
I said, James, I love you as a little kid, I love you now.
And Norman Powell knows a thing or two about scouting. He's been doing it for 77 years. And he's a relative of Lord Baden-Powell, the man who founded the Boy Scouts. He wouldn't discuss the Scouts' policy on gays. He did tell us he thinks James Dale would make an excellent scout leader.
He's probably one of the best scouts I've had. He's really dedicated and he loves scouting. And when he was turned away, this, I think, broke his heart.
Broke his heart, maybe, but not his spirit. James says he's in this fight to the end because when you start something, you finish it. He learned that in the Boy Scouts.
I have to make it a better program, and I have to keep them true to their own ideals, and to their own oath, and to their own law.
What do you think? Give us some feedback. If you're over 18, you can call us at 900-678-4622, which will cost you 95 cents a minute. You can also send us a fax at 212-664-3330 or reach us by email. Our address is dateline@nbc.com.
Here's what I think. Here's common sense. Let the gays be in the Boy Scouts. What are you going to do? Violate Kevin Mitchell's civil rights? They join the Boy Scouts? Is that it? Here's common sense for you. Let them join. Gay, straight, black, white, doesn't matter. Let them in. When we come back, Dancing with the Rhinos. If you were to listen to a song from Quest from the 1998 animated cartoon movie called Quest in Camelot, there's a part of the song from the lyric that would say, "I'd be rocking with the dinos, swinging with the rhinos." Well, you wouldn't even spin with the rhinos even if you were a dragon. But this is a story all about the rhino's survival. Years ago, guns were banned to even hunt the rhinos. Now they're back, and as we're about to show you, the animal kingdom could be a survival animal kingdom. How can that be? Here's Keith Miller.
It's an animal that has an enormously bad public image.
An undeserved image for such a preposterous creature. An armored amalgam of unicorn and hippopotamus, unchanged over thousands of years. But an animal that may not be around much longer. In the 19th century, 150,000 black rhinos wandered across Africa, their horns and tough hides making them more than a match for the continent's most ferocious predators. Today, fewer than 2,500 black rhinos roam the African plains. They can live for 50 years and weigh up to 6,000 pounds, about the same as your basic family minivan. And they are surprisingly agile and fast, reaching speeds of up to 30 miles an hour.
They have the ability to move like polar bears, extremely swift. Once they hear you running, you just focusing on that sound, and they are after you. So cheap an armored car. Yeah, it's like pictures finals.
We explored South Africa's Lapalala Wilderness Game Reserve with Clive Walker, a conservationist with an unlikely background.
It doesn't spring to mind that anyone could feel remotely proud about having shot a white rhino.
And Walker, a former big game hunter, shot a lot of rhinos. They were for a long time considered among the biggest of big game, and trophy hunters slaughtered tens of thousands. As formidable as rhinos are to other animals, they are easy prey for hunters.
They're large, they're very vulnerable, they're extremely easy to kill. It's like throwing a brick at your neighbor's cow.
And although the heyday of the great white hunters is long past, the threat to the rhinos isn't. Those horns that can make short work of a lion are coveted as medicine in Asia. There, the horn is ground into powder, not for use as an aphrodisiac as is widely believed, but to make pills that patients believe will reduce fevers. And in Yemen, the rhino's horn is carved into traditional dagger handles. Incredibly, the demand created by these two markets means a single rhino horn can be worth as much as $30,000. To stop illegal hunting, wildlife officers have turned their game preserves into virtual war zones. This is a live ammunition drill complete with simulated poachers. These are the frontline troops in the battle to restore the rhino. Some game parks have nearly one warden for every rhinoceros. And for the real poachers they catch, like this man caught hunting in a rhino preserve and shot to death, there are no Miranda warnings.
If you think of the destruction and the amount of bloodshed in terms of not only rhinos, but the amount of people that have lost their lives in the rhino wars in Africa, it's a really serious situation.
One of the more controversial tactics in the rhino wars calls for first shooting them with tranquilizer darts from helicopters. Sickened by the sight of slaughtered rhinos untouched except for their horns, game wardens have begun to remove horns from tranquilized rhinos. The logic: no rhino horn, no rhino poaching. The horn is made of keratin, just like human fingernails, so this rhino feels no pain. And scientists say the only thing hurt by this rhinoceros rhinoplasty is the animal's pride. But Walker says the practice only works in the wildlife preserves. It would be too dangerous in the wild, where there are far too many predators.
That horn is used daily by rhinos, not only to defend themselves, but to defend their calves, protect them against lions, hyenas. So the rhino has a horn for a very good reason.
The last best hope for the rhino may be far from the South African bush. Political, economic, and cultural problems that threaten the rhino's survival exist even within the game parks of Africa. So wildlife biologists will do almost anything to stop the rhino's slide toward extinction. In a place thousands of miles from here, Dateline has discovered scientists who are trying to save the rhino. In Texas, where the deer and antelope roam, giraffe, zebra, and rhinoceros have found their own home on the range. At the Fossil Rim Wildlife Center in Glen Rose, Texas, scientists are using the latest in human medical technology to study rhinos.
Good girl. Come on over. They're incredible. They can be very gentle, and they aren't necessarily the savage beasts that they're made out to be.
Dr. Robin Radcliffe is a veterinarian studying the mysteries of rhino reproduction. They're starting from scratch.
We're basically formulating the blueprint of what normal reproductive biology is in this species. Good girl, Coco.
Scientists like Radcliffe look forward to a day when captive rhinos can be reintroduced to the wild. Meanwhile, there's a lot of basic research to help breed them in captivity.
Eventually, if we can perfect artificial insemination techniques or embryo transfer, we could transfer genetic information such as semen or eggs between captive and wild rhino population. There's the follicle right to the left.
Using ultrasound equipment, Radcliffe first determines that Coco, a black rhino, is fertile. That established, a male rhino is brought in. An elaborate courtship dance begins.
They do a lot of fighting, and it's very ritualized so they don't hurt each other.
When Coco became pregnant, she was monitored with the ultrasound machine throughout her pregnancy.
That's a good picture.
Which in rhinos can last 15 months.
Good girl.
By day 56, the rhino fetus is visible in the white areas. By day 107, the nose, eye, and head can be made out. On day 133, the 4 chambers of the beating heart can be seen. And by day 155, you can make out the kicking legs of the upside-down fetus.
We know when to prepare for an upcoming birth, which in a rhino is a pretty major ordeal.
And when Coco delivered Onyx, a bouncing 105-pound female, it was just that, for the rhino and for the researchers. To Radcliffe, these small victories, like Onyx, are just a start in restoring the rhinos.
Humankind is responsible for the current precarious existence of the rhino today, but at the same time, humans also represent their only hope for survival.
There is one part of Africa where efforts to protect the rhino have worked. In South Africa's huge national parks, where 80% of the continent's remaining rhinos live, the population is growing.
It's not just the rhinos that are being killed, it's the tigers. On a future broadcast, we're going to show you an investigation from ABC News Day 1 with Jay Schaefer investigating how tiger parts are used. Like the bones to the tiger penis. It's an investigation you probably won't want to miss soon. I'll be back in just a moment. Coming up on Give Me a Break Saturday night, we're going to take you for a ride in a car. Well, not just any car, a stolen car. And at this time, you're going to witness hidden camera footage of car thieves in action. From the garage down to the bar. You and Dateline's hidden cameras are going undercover to capture these car thieves. And at the same time, you'll be undercover with the police as they try to catch these thieves. And we'll tell you what you can do to protect yourself from these car thieves. Here's a preview.
Tonight, ride along with the Fast and the Furious.
These are the #1 lines out there.
They deal in stolen cars.
Is that a Mercedes?
Already? Yeah. Drugs and deadly weapons. Carjacking victims like this man at gunpoint.
Right here.
Now, these officers will risk their lives to go undercover.
Be advised that they brought a gun with them, so be careful.
With Dateline's hidden cameras rolling, they're about to enter the danger zone. Can these officers catch the crooks before the crooks catch on to the sting?
Sort of a surprise party.
Surprise, party.
You're here to
Victoria Corderi goes on a ride-along to catch a car thief.
Every 30 seconds in this country, a car is stolen. That means by the time there's...
Alright. That's on Saturday. And again, we're also going to tell you how you can protect yourself from car thieves, along with computer hacking. So we have computer hacking and carjacking, and car thieves. That's coming up tomorrow on this broadcast, so make sure to look forward to it. That's Give Me a Break for this Friday. We'll see you again tomorrow for Give Me a Break Saturday night. For all of us here at YouTube, and Give Me a Break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Good night.